Whew, now the table is always hot with current events and social issues, but
Hmm.
sometimes the heat can get a little intense.
Just a little bit.
Just a smidge. So let's turn the temp down, take a breather, and get into this week's topic cool down. Andre, what do you have for us?
Well, Daquon, I wanted to ask you, do you think that there is a such thing as happily ever after in the real world? And what do you think your happily ever after would look like?
So I don't believe in happily ever afters in the normal sense that there is a happily ever after. I think that there can be multiplicities when we talk about happily ever afters. So that
Hmm.
means that it's going to look different for each and every person. One person's happily ever after could be that traditional, oh, they got married, they had children, 2.5 kids and a dog, white picket fence, live in suburbia, happily ever after.
Hmm.
Some people, that's not for them, and that's perfectly fine. Their happily ever after could be pursuing a career milestone that they always wanted to pursue. Their
Hmm.
happily ever after could be getting in touch with themselves in a way that makes them feel like they really know who they are and know that what their purpose is. And so for me, my happily ever after would be something where I can look back and feel like I achieved my purpose on this planet, that I did something to help out the next person. I think that, if you believe in astrology, I have an Aquarius rising, and a lot of times Aquarius gets known as the humanitarian. And so I think that's an important part of who I am. I see myself as a very humanitarian type person. And so I want to be able to leave my mark on this earth, making it a better place, teaching somebody something new that they may have never known, teaching somebody to love themselves and be that representation that allows them to know that they are perfect the way that they are. There's no need to change to conform to society. And this isn't even like in an ego trip type thing where I want to have like this huge impact and everybody remembers me. No,
Yeah,
I just want to make this world a better place than I found it.
that's beautiful. Um, I don't know. I think for me, I think happily ever after exists, but not in the way that we've been taught. You see, I think my problem with happily ever after is that it's often used in place of a transitional period of life when it shouldn't be used as such. Like, just because you got married, had kids, reached a career goal doesn't mean it's happily ever after. I think the more appropriate term in that place should be being at peace. For me, happiness is a temporary emotion, whereas peace feels more permanent. If you're happy, you can become sad, but if you're at peace, you can still be at peace when you're happy or sad. You strive to reach a stage in your relationship or life or career where you're at peace with the ups and downs that life throws at you. And even when things aren't going well, your peace is never disrupted because you know that things will go well again, or you have the strength to get through it. Then, if you were able to achieve all the things that you hope to achieve, or at the very least you gave it all to try, when you die, you lived happily ever after. And I think that my happily ever after would be knowing that I lived my life doing what I love most. It would be knowing that I never gave up on my dreams and pursued the highest highs of my career success. It would be knowing that even if I didn't end up with the romantic relationship, that my life was still so full of joy and so much love. It would be understanding and believing without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that I was enough.
Absolutely beautiful. And I also really appreciated the point about happily ever after being used for transitionary periods because I think that every time we see happily ever after in a fairy tale or a storybook, it's like case closed, ended.
Yeah.
But in that transition, before the story really ends, there are so many important things that can happen that cannot just be summed up in a happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important for us to think about when it comes to happily ever afters. Is it the true end, or are we just replacing some type of transitionary period? And learning how to love and explore these transitionary periods in your life, because I think that those periods can be where you find true peace and you get that permanent peace that cannot be shaken by the ups and downs of the world.
Exactly. Now, so many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. And Daquon, I think it's time for a change.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. Now, Arthur Ashe became the first African-American male tennis player to win the U.S. Open and Wimbledon singles titles. Ashe's resume includes 3 Grand Slam titles and the title of the first Black player selected to the United States Davis Cup team. In July 1979, Ashe suffered a heart attack while holding a tennis clinic in New York. His high profile drew attention to his condition, specifically the hereditary aspect of heart disease. In 1992, Ashe was diagnosed with HIV. He and his doctors believed that he contracted the virus from blood transfusions he received during his second heart surgery. Now, after Ashe went public with his illness, he founded the Arthur Ashe Foundation for the Defeat of AIDS, working to raise awareness about the disease and advocated for teaching safe sex education. On June 20th, 1993, Ashe was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Bill Clinton after his death on February 6, 1993.
I really appreciate hearing stories like that, because so many times HIV and AIDS is just wrapped up as this gay disease. It's a punishment for their crimes, a consequence for their actions. And no, it's much more than that. And so to hear how much he put into, funding AIDS research to, try to find cures and treatments and stuff like that. It's so humbling to hear. So in an article published by Marie Claire, 18 Black history heroes you may never have heard of, we learn about Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, who was the first African-American woman physician in the United States. Born in 1831, Dr. Crumpler first worked as a nurse in Massachusetts between 1852 and 1860. She was accepted to the New England Female Medical College and earned an MD in 1864. She practiced medicine in Boston and Richmond, Virginia, primarily working with the poor who had limited access to medical care. In 1883, Dr. Crumpler published a renowned book of medical discourses in 2 parts, which many believe is the first medical text written by an African-American author.
Black people.
Gotta love a Black first.
Black, and I think it's so crazy, like 18 in the 1800s.
Child.
It just really just goes to show just how much, no matter what goes on, Black people and people of color will persevere. We will get through that shit, because throughout, I'm sure, all the racism and bullshit she encountered, I'm sure she was like, fuck all these bitches. Huh. Fuck all these
amazing.
Bitches.
I'm that bitch.
I'm that bitch. Oh, she was like, I was originally that bitch. We'll always forever be that bitch. Okay. Now, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and keep that conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review on whatever platform you are using. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram and TikTok at the Melanin Margin for updates of new content.
And if you'd like to follow each of us, our handles are at Daquon, MUE.
And at Andre Talks a Lot Haney.
Now, we will see you all next week on the Melanin Margin, where our goal is always to bring the marginalized to the spotlight in any way we can. Goodbye now.